The longer I live and the more I learn, the less certain I am about almost everything. This is not to say that I am without conviction or expectation, but I am skeptical of certitudes. I learned something of this from my grandfather. My maternal grandfather was born in Bucks County, Pennsylvania in November 1868. This was just 3.5 years after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and about 6 months before the last spike was driven to complete the Transcontinental Railroad. In 1871, his father brought the family west out to the Illinois prairie and built the house, which has now sheltered 5 generations. Grandpa was 82 when I was born, but he was still quite active, and I have many memories of him. I remember sitting on the porch swing of the old farmhouse and looking out towards the fields, and he said, "When we first came here, as far as the eye could see, there was nothing but prairie grass as high as a horse's back." And I remember he delighted in reciting from memory really gruesome fairy tales. Asked me later about Dunderbeck's sausage machine. And I can still see him winding his Seth Thomas clock every night about 9 p.m. and then calling loudly to my grandmother, "Myra, let's go to bed so these good people can go home." And I remember him saying often, "I expect to live to be 100. I've always expected I would." For years, I was impressed and maybe a little bit irritated by what seemed a sort of smug certainty about that. I thought his expectation of long life was like his religious certainties. But looking back, I think by then life had shown him that certainties are of limited usefulness in this world at least, and I came to believe that his expectation grew from careful intention, not from some assumption of certainty. His expectation was steadfast, but the intentions beneath it were malleable and nimble, rooted more in what he expected of himself than in whatever might happen in the world around him. When he was growing up on the farm, I'm sure it seemed a certainty that he would spend his life learning and practicing those ancient arts and crafts of what we now call organic farming with integrated pest and soils management, what Grandpa called farming. And he did become a farmer, but defying expectations, he also went to college. And he was a school teacher, and he was a lay preacher, and he ran for Secretary of State of the state of Illinois on the Prohibition ticket in 1932. He lost. When I knew him, Grandpa had witnessed 2 world wars, 2 presidents assassinated, the advent of the automobile, air travel, movies, radio, and television, and he couldn't possibly have expected we would travel into space. But in his lifetime, we did. And I did attend his 100th birthday party in that old farmhouse. And I heard him reply when asked if he knew how old he was, "I'm twice as old as half. Ask me again, I'll make you laugh." And we did, we laughed. He died only 6 weeks later, but had he lived another 7 months, he would have seen men walk on the moon. When I think about him and how his calm expectations of long life survived those countless unexpected events and calamities around him, I take the lesson that expectation rooted in intention can survive long after all our certainties have crumbled. That lesson is very real for me right now. Many of you know that my wife is undergoing treatment for a very serious illness, and we have no guarantees. We have no certainty of outcomes. But what we do have is a determined intention to do the work of healing. And rooted in that intention, yes, we have an expectation that all will be well.